pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stay standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world, and especially for all those who have passed away during the past week, including Enos Slocum, a longtime employee of the Department of Public Works. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wexler?
Here.
Mr. Rogan?
Here.
Mr. Gahn?
Here.
Mr. McGough?
Here.
I make a motion to nominate a person to fill the position vacated by Councilman Jack Loscom for the remainder of his office, which will expire at 12 o'clock noon on January 4th, 2016.
A motion has been made to fill the position vacated by Councilman Loscom. Is there a second?
Second.
On the question.
Yes, on the question. I am voting no for the appointment of Mr. Evans. This vote is not because I believe Mr. Evans is unqualified. I think he will make a good councilman. I am voting no because the voters of Scranton elected a Democratic candidate, Jack Loscom, to serve in that seat. The remaining 18 months of Mr. Loscom's term should be assumed by a Democrat, not a Republican. If it was the other way around and a Republican councilman was elected and had resigned, then I would argue that a Republican should be appointed to serve the remainder of the term. And for those reasons, I cannot vote for this appointment.
This particular motion is to simply place the nomination on the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
The ayes have it, and so moved.
I make a motion to nominate Wayne Evans to fill the unexpired term of Councilman Jack Loscom, which will expire at 12 noon on January 4th, 2016.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the question.
Yes, on...
Sorry.
After you, Mr.
Yes. Mr. McGough, I am voting for Mr. Evans for this position. I know Mr. Evans for quite a long time. I have worked with him on several different community and neighborhood projects. We did have an impressive list of candidates that came and presented their case on Saturday. Looking over them all, Mr. Evans had the best resume of what we were looking for in a council person. During this process, we received several calls for several different candidates, some in favor, some against some of the people that we were talking about. Many of the calls that we received did not take offense to Mr. Evans as a candidate, but took offense to him as a Republican. I myself am a Democrat. I've been a Democrat my whole life. The only other Republican I ever supported was Brian Reap, and Brian was an excellent councilman. In this case, I believe that we have to rise above party politics. In this case, we need to be Scrantonians. And I believe at this time, Mr. Evans represents the best candidate to help us solve our problems in the city. Thank you.
Three was a consensus pick. We went through a process where we ranked candidates. We had them 1 through 7, most of us. We went through and whittled down the list. Some of the people that I had number 1 and 2 may have been eliminated prior to the final vote, and as we kept moving down the line, we were left with a few candidates, and of those remaining few, Mr. Evans by far had the most impressive resume. He's very active in the community. I think he will do a great job on city council, as many of the applicants would have. But at the end of the day, this decision had to be about the person, not about the party. I wasn't elected by the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. I was elected by the people of Scranton, as we all were. And that's who we're here to serve.
Mr. Gahn, anything else? I too would like to comment, not so much on the candidates, but we attempted to use a process to to choose a candidate, a process which eliminated politics from this process, and I am very disappointed with the actions of party officials, some elected officials, some other people who attempted to cajole and intimidate members of council and actually threaten members of council to sway their vote. This was not a political process. This was an appointment. And people who did that, I believe, acted unethically and should be ashamed of their actions in this process. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. McGough?
Yes.
Oh, no, wait, what were we voting on, the appointment?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No.
You're good.
Mr. McGough?
Yes. I hereby declare this motion passed and that Mr. Wayne Evans will be appointed, has been appointed as the new member of Scranton City Council to fill the unexpired term of Jack Loscombe. I would like at this point in time to take a brief recess, minute or two, so that we may contact Mr. Evans and make him aware of the appointment.
Motion to recess.
All in favor?
Aye. Want to go get Laura?
She's coming. They're coming. I'm sure it's off. I'd like to call the meeting back to order.
Third order, 3A Controllers Report for the month ending June 30, 2014.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3B Tax Assessor's Report for the hearing date held July 9, 2014.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3C Minutes of the Scranton Firefighters Pension Commission meetings held May 28 and June 25, 2014.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3D, agenda for the City Planning Commission meeting held on July 23rd, 2014.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
Just a note for 3D, Mr. McGough.
Yes.
The meeting was canceled last night due to lack of a quorum.
Thank you.
3E, minutes of the Composite Pension Board meeting held June 25, 2014.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed. Are there any clerk's notes?
Nothing, Mr. McGough.
Any announcements from members of council?
Yes, just one. The Office of Economic and Community Development will conduct the second public hearing to obtain citizens' views on housing and non-housing community development needs in the city of Scranton and development of proposed activities to those in need. The meeting will take place on Wednesday, July 30th, 2014 at 6 p.m. in Scranton City Council chambers. Those wishing to apply for assistance may obtain applications at OECD or online at www.scrantonpa.gov. All applications must be received by OECD by August 8th.
I have two. My thoughts and prayers go out to Teresa Osborne and her family. Teresa was involved in a serious car accident this week, and I wish her a quick recovery. The second annual Arts on the Square event will once again take place around Courthouse Square in downtown Scranton this Saturday, July 26th, from noon until 8 p.m. This year's free event will feature more than 100 vendors and 8 live band performances, and that is all I have.
A couple of items. First of all, council did hold an executive meeting on Tuesday evening, as was reported in the paper. We initially thought that we could meet to discuss candidates for the council position. When it was brought up that this may be a violation of Sunshine Act, we declined doing that, and but we did meet with our solicitor, and the solicitor just briefly gave us some information about Act 205. But there was no discussion of any legislation at that meeting. Also, on tonight's agenda, there are 2 new items dealing with the LHVA. These items deal with easements from the city. They deal with city-owned properties, and because of the timely nature of these 2 pieces of legislation, if they are introduced this evening, we are going to look to move them from 6th to 7th order at our next meeting, so that they can, so that there's no possibility of losing the grant money that's involved. And lastly, if we're, depending on the length of the meeting, if some of you would like to go over to the courthouse, tonight is the showing, the outdoor showing of Despicable Me 2. I'm told that Despicable Me 2 is the life story of Mr. Rogan, but I'm not sure. But it's the movie on the square. It starts at approximately 9 o'clock. There are children's activities that start at 8 o'clock. And that is all I have.
4th order, citizens' participation.
First speaker is Bill Jackwitz.
Good evening, Scranton City Council, Kathy, Emil, Lori, and Council stenographer. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Wayne Evans on his selection. I didn't know he was a Republican, but it doesn't really matter. Republican, Democrat, Independent, as long as he represents the people the way we expect him to represent us, I have no problem with it. Okay, I'd like to kind of put this on a different light tonight. I'm not even going to talk about city government or politics or anything. I'm going to talk about the show and the dinner that the Dante Club will be having this weekend. Dante Club at 1916 Prospect Avenue. We'll be having a roast beef dinner and a comedy musical show Friday night, tomorrow night, and Saturday night. The roast beef dinner starts at 6:30. The comedy musical show will be starting at 8 o'clock. It's all local talent. The Miller sisters will be providing the music, and from what I'm being told, they're very good. They're all local, born and raised in Scranton. The comedians will be local, born and raised in Scranton. Price of excuse me. Price of admission is $15. You can pay at the door, or you can get your tickets in advance. Again, I think it'll be a fun time for the citizens of Scranton and surrounding areas to come out, relax a little bit, enjoy themselves, and maybe forget about politics and everything else that's going on in the city and in the country. So, like I said, I invite everyone to come out to the Dante Club at 1916 Prospect Avenue for a roast beef dinner and entertainment. It's $15 for the dinner and the show. So I hope to see a lot of people out there. It's Friday night and Saturday night. The doors open at 5:30, the dinner starts at 6:30, and the show will start at 8 o'clock. So I hope to see everybody. I hope to see people come out, enjoy themselves, have a good time, and put all the politics and arguing and fighting behind them. Have a cool adult beverage. Have something good to eat, have a few laughs with the comedians, have a good dinner, and enjoy yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Jacklitz. John Drobnicki.
Well, I'm new to the city. I bought a home here 5 years ago.
Please just state your name for the record.
John Drobnicki. I'm new to I bought a home here 5 years ago, and I see a lot of the bickering going on. And I know the city's distressed, and I see people looking for big money and raises with, the police, the firemen, or whatever. I used to make a good living. And I know a lot of people, when I grew up, we used to have packing houses in the area. We had big factories. We all worked overtime. We were a union. I worked for a Fortune 500 company. They've taken my income from $19 an hour down to $8.50. All right, I have to pay people, the wages of the city out of what I earn today, and there's a lot of people in my same, category. I mean, I bought a home here. I dumped more money in my home than what I paid for it. Made my place look nice, and I'm satisfied with the taxes I'm paying. But for people to come out and say, hey, we need more money, we need bigger pensions, and they want to put this demand on us taxpayers. We don't have this money anymore to give them. We're working for a quarter, less than a half of what we used to make before. And if these people put this big demand on, you got to tell them, hey, look at John there. He used to make a good buck. He didn't mind paying us money before. We don't have it anymore. People got to start learning to cut back. I don't want to take anybody's pay away from them, but geez, they don't need to get any more money, And the second thing is, I live on Ferdinand and Sweeney. I don't know if you can address that, but I would like to see a stop sign there because it's a hill where people are flying down. And it's putting cinders and things all over the homes. And it's getting dangerous to take that right-hand turn on Sweeney. And one of these days there's going to be an accident, and I know it's hard to police it because of the amount of police you have and everything else, but if it's possible, somebody could look at that, put a stop sign on the corner of Sweeney there. But this way, at least the traffic could slow down and stop some of the, maybe a possible accident in that area. So that's all I have to say here. I don't come down to condemn people doing anything. I'm just trying to put a light on things for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Drobnicki.
Right.
Doug Miller? Mr. Morgan, you're next on the list. If you would like to speak, we can.
Good evening, Council. Doug Miller, Scranton. Just like to address a few issues here this evening. First is obviously in regards to the proposed commuter tax or Act 205 tax. As we can see, there are quite a few people here this evening, and a lot of people concerned about the potential tax. As we stated previously, more or less a punishment on those who had absolutely nothing to do with the fiscal mismanagement caused by failed leadership and incompetent people on councils in the past administrations. And, just to sort of repeat what I said last week. In the past, in 2012, I did support a commuter tax that was to benefit services that we provide daily. However, today, it's an awful lot has changed. The circumstances are much different in terms of the pension crisis. We're now asking people outside of the city to contribute towards a failed pension plan that we caused. We caused it to be in the position it is in today, not people from outside of the community. You know, it was stated in the paper today by Mr. McGough that he doesn't represent Jane from Dixon City. He will make decisions that are in the best interest of the residents of this city. Well, you know, I definitely take issue with that statement because, you know, Jane from Dixon City and many others out there didn't cause these problems. You did. Your failed leadership and the failed leadership of many others. That's the reality of the situation. And now we want to put it on the backs of people like Jane from Dixon City who don't have the ability to cast a vote in this community. And yes, it is taxation without representation. And we could talk about the fact that the state legislature approved it. Well, that's nice. They approve a lot of laws that end up being flawed. We want to talk about taxation without representation. Let's talk about the garbage fee. Who passed that? Council. That's a taxation without representation. How do we justify that fee? It's illegal. It shouldn't exist. It's to collect funds to pay the tipping fee at the landfill that we don't even pay. So what sense does it make, gentlemen? I mean, you're out of your minds. So these poor people that we have here tonight, and many others that, you know, quite frankly are probably intimidated by coming forward, are being punished because you're incompetent and incapable of solving your own problems. You know, we hear today the front page headline, the mayor's mum on Plan B. Well, the last time I checked, a little common sense would tell you have to have a Plan A before you have a Plan B. We don't even know what Plan A is. It's not the Henry the Liquidator plan because that's only suicide. Selling the sewer authority so rates could skyrocket. We don't even know what it's worth. It's worth billions, and we want to sell it for what, 20 million, I believe the discussion is? We want to sell parking garages that we don't even know what they're valued at. We're pulling figures out of the sky, 22 million, and still owe 30 million on them. That's common sense, gentlemen? No, it's not. And we haven't had it around here for a long time, and it's really sad. Our solution is always, let's put it on the shoulders of other people. Well, you've continued to put the screws of the people that live here, and now you want to put the screws of the people that commute here and earn a living. They don't have to come here. In fact, they could go anywhere else they want in northeastern Pennsylvania. But they choose to come here to earn a living. And what do you want to do to them? You want to slap them right across the face and say, no, we're punishing you because we're incompetent and we're inept and we can't solve our own problems. We can't take advantage of the assets we have to generate revenue into this city, so we're going to put it on you. You know, one of the things I brought forward, and it's been discussed, is taking advantage of a money-making opportunity we have right here in downtown Scranton, and that's with the Steamtown Mall. And discussions taking place on converting that into a casino and resort. And it's not a pipe dream. It's a reality-making thing that could generate millions and millions of dollars into this city. Nothing's a pipe dream if you're willing to roll your sleeves up and actually do the work. And, you know, let me just say this. A wagon can't move unless somebody's willing to get behind it and push it. And if somebody doesn't get behind it, that wagon doesn't move. Today we have the chance to get behind something and push it and make it a reality. And we can do that with the mall at Steamtown. If we actually put some creativity forth and actually take politics out of our decision making for once, even though I know that's probably a hard thing to do. But if we actually think of people for a change, we can probably turn this community around. But consistently putting it on the shoulders of those who had nothing to do with it is not the answer, gentlemen. And it's really discouraging that we lack that common sense. And we have the inability to solve our own problems, that we need other people to come in from out of town to show us how to run the city. And tonight I have with me, as I promised last week, a petition that I'm going to present, and it's already been made available on social media for those to sign. And it states that we, the undersigned, support Bob Bowles in spearheading the development of the Steamtown Mall in Scranton into the Steamtown Casino and Resort. And we encourage all our legislators to propose legislation to create a casino and resort license for the Steamtown Mall site in an effort to save the city. This is what happens when you use creativity. And I know, Mr. Rogan, last week you stated that, you know, if this were something that could come into fruition, that you'd be on support of it. And I would just like to ask tonight if anybody on this council would be willing to be the first to sign the petition to get the ball moving.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Is there anybody that would be willing to sign it tonight, gentlemen? The silence speaks volumes.
Thank you. Lee Morgan?
Good evening, council. You know, tonight, you know, I applaud Mr. Evans. I wish him well. But, you know, I think that we need to start facing some realities on what's happened to the pension. And it's only my opinion that maybe a receiver should be named for the city of Scranton. We're way beyond the ability of recovery in this city. The pension plan is going to collapse quite possibly soon from what the Scranton Times basically had to say about it. And all these fees and, you know, over 20 years of, well, Mr. Doherty's plan was first. I read that. That was at the library. That wasn't a recovery plan. And nothing that really has come here has been a recovery plan. I'm not going to take cheap shots at people who've served before. And because I think that's counterproductive to say that about people. But, you know, we really need a plan here. And the commuter tax is definitely wrong. I think Mr. Gahan got it pretty much right last week. You know, the truth of the matter is the mercantile tax, the wage tax, they have to go away. We have to tell the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that this city is bankrupt due to their mismanagement of PEL and their plans for us. And, you know, all these tax increases that have hit the neighborhoods, they need to be repealed to a major extent. And will that leave the budget short? Yes, it will. It's time for the council to come up with a plan to cut positions in the city further than they've ever been cut before. Because to be quite bluntly honest with you, we can't afford to pay our employees. We can't afford to save this city. You know, I have a subpoena going back here from 2005 that Janet Evans signed in 05, okay? You know, maybe at that time, if a number of subpoenas were served on city government in various ways, there would have been something to solve, but you know, selling the sewer authority and selling parking garages, that's another one-time fix, and then the city will be left with nothing. The residents have no money to pay these taxes because we don't have a wage base that will give them the income necessary to pay it. We have senior citizens reverse mortgaging their homes. We have blight in all the neighborhoods. Somebody came up with the great idea that we should attack all rental properties, and that was our problem. That was another misguided vision of our elected officials. You know, we're good at blaming everybody else about the problems we have in our city, and we have been for 80 plus years a city driven by politics with reality a very distant second. And the truth of the matter is, I don't think the city is ever going to wake up until all the employers decide to start moving out of here. I do know that there are residents leaving because I work with a couple, and they're making really good money. Some of them are making up to $1,500 a week. And they're just tired of paying this wage tax. They're just not going to do it. They're going to take their money and they're going to leave. And the only people that this council and this administration, well, not this administration, but this government has done is trap all the poor seniors trapped in their homes, which is their major investment, and we're extorting them. We're telling them, well, look, you do it out this week and this, and you do it out that, but just make sure you pay your taxes. And some of them have told me blatantly, they aren't going to pay because they can't. But yet, and still, this council and the mayor, I assume, is going to do another round of property tax increases. And what we really need to do is cut city government down in the confines of what the community can afford. And it's going to be really tough because a lot of city employees, they're not making a lot of money. It's really, a lot of the city employees are really, they're not making any money. They may perceive that they are. But if you're making 30 grand, you're wasting your time. You're going to work for nothing. And we have an elected government in this city that should have been trying to create or recreate Scranton by creating jobs, and it just hasn't happened because there's been a lack of vision. But maybe this council will see SAPR for what it can be, and maybe they'll propel that forward. But as far as everything else, look, we've got to cut taxes. We've got to get rid of the mercantile tax. We've got to do something to cut the wage tax, or look, if people just won't live here who work. And then what do you think is going to happen? I mean, and the seniors, who's going to come in and buy their properties? There's properties scattered throughout this whole city for sale, and nobody's looking at them. So when these properties become vacant and they're eyesores and they're vandalized, look at the projects that have come through here. Scranton Lace was on fire again. They're cutting all the scrap out of it they can to sell. Was that really a great plan? I don't know. Some of the people around there want them to tear that building down now. And there's a lot of people around the former North Scranton that want that building torn down. And look at it. Yeah, the front looks okay, but there's no windows anywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Matthew Ford.
Thank you, council members and attendees, for being here today. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Matthew Ford from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. I am a commuter. I first want to address something I was unaware of before today. Mr. McGough, I'm quite appalled at your remarks towards Jane and Dixon City, and quite frankly, with that type of attitude, Matt in Wilkes-Barre doesn't care about the city of Scranton. And when Matt in Wilkes-Barre is up at work and he has to get a meal, he's going to go to Old Forge. I got a haircut in Scranton today. Well, if you don't care about me, I don't care about your city, and I'll take my business elsewhere. And I think it's quite short-sighted, and possibly that's the problem, is that we're so focused on the now that we're not worried about the future and possibly how you guys got yourselves into this mess. Now, the city has budgeted $4.2 million in 2002 for their pension, and they now want to raise a tax that's going to levy $5 million of commuter funds over the next, each year for the next, considerable future, which means that you guys want the commuters to pay more than you're willing to donate yourselves to that particular pension fund, and I think that's very shameful of you. Now, last time I was here, Mr. Gahn raised very interesting questions regarding this tax, especially regarding what the state legislature is planning on doing regarding Act 205. And basically, it's looking more and more like, based on the news reports, that bill is going to go through, and they're going to require a raise on the city workers as well who do live in Scranton. Now, a couple notes to that. First, I find it absolutely atrocious that Mr. Gahn was the only one who was aware of that, and Mr. Rogan and Mr. Weckler, last time I was here, said that they were unaware of that. I remind you, gentlemen, it is your job to be educated about the topics that you are deciding, and it is in your job description to actually investigate those. It's not on somebody else to come and tell you what's going on with these issues. It's your job to be the authority. I also think that it's absolutely insane that we're discussing pushing this legislation through when it's only going to raise $5 million a year, and you have a $90 million budget shortfall in your pension, which means it's going to take at least 20 years for this to actually help the budget, and you guys are saying that, hey, we need to get this done within the next 3 weeks. Now, what's going to happen in the next 3 weeks that's somehow going to magically fix this budget, that it can't be taken deliberately like you're supposed to, investigated, and actually take pause to find out how the citizens of this city are going to be affected by the law as well as non-residents? I find it absolutely horrendous that the decision's being made in rush, and I think that you guys should all take a step back and really discuss how this plan is going to be enacted. Perhaps the problem is just this, and the fact that the decision is not being made on facts and people aren't investigating the matter. They're just doing what they're told. Mr. Amorosa has no financial involvement in this city other than getting paid. He doesn't have any interest in getting the city fixed. He's going to get paid either way. It's on you guys. He's not going to be the one to tell you what plan's going to work and what's going to fix. It's on you guys to be creative, to take initiative, to come up with new ideas that are going to change. You guys have been raising taxes for years. It has not helped. There's statistical evidence of this. You guys have also raised your government spending over the past 3 years. What realistic steps are you taking to get the budget in control? It goes far beyond $5 million a year that you're going to raise with this. And like I said, the only thing that you're going to do is further isolate Scranton. Scranton needs an infusion of business from outside communities that come and spend their money here, which results in your citizens making more money and paying more taxes. And if you continue to impose laws upon those outside your city limits, those people are going to have less incentive to come to your city when they have an opportunity to do business. Thank you.
Mr. Ford, may I ask you a question?
Absolutely, sir.
Do you work in the city of Scranton?
Yes, sir. I work over on Kaiser Ave.
Thank you. kind of follow-up. Being a resident of Wilkes-Barre, you are not going to be subject to the Act 205 tax, correct?
I was unaware of that. That being the case, my involvement today, I would hope that it goes farther than personal interest, and that I feel that community involvement is the cornerstone in building a strong community, and I'm here to speak on others' behalfs as well as mine.
Thank you.
I would just like to make a brief comment as well regarding much of what was in the newspaper regarding the state legislator, if they decided to make a change. As the law currently states, if the city of Scranton were to enact a 205 tax, it would only be implemented on commuters. There would not be any additional tax on the residents of Scranton. In order for there to be an additional tax on the residents of Scranton, City Council would have to approve it. If the legislator were to change the law to put in the equal provision where the 0.75 would have to be levied on both the city and both commuters, the simple solution is you reduce your existing wage tax by 0.75% in the city, and you have two wage tax. And what that would do is it would keep the level the same for the residents of Scranton. I'll comment more on it under motions, but I know a lot of people have, from the city who have been concerned about it, have voiced that opinion, whether it would be applied to them if Senator Blake has his way and pushes another tax on Scranton's residents.
My only question would be how you would be able to do that procedurally. I would like to see, that's another question. Then that opens the door for, well, how would you just be able to lower your own wage tax? I mean,
we have that opportunity every year.
Well, I would like to see what the procedure would be for that.
We vote in January every year to set the tax
Again, I would
rates.
like to see the procedure for that, because to me, there's that opens up a lot of questions.
You voted on the tax rates in January.
Okay, thank you. Irene Clark? Thank you. Mayor Lawler?
Hello, and thank you so much for this invitation to come before you. It speaks volumes of your leadership. It tells me as an individual and as a sitting council how fair-minded and how respectful you are of the commuters that might be impacted with this, and also that you're trying very much to be transparent. So I'm here, and I thank you for that, and I know that you're leading in difficult. Oh,
I'm sorry.
Mayor Lawler.
I'm sorry. Just
Forgive me.
For the record.
Patty Lawler, Clark Summit Borough.
Thank you.
Sorry. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. I think it's because I'm in this beautiful facility, this beautiful chambers, that I forgot to do that. But at any rate, I want you to know it doesn't bypass me how difficult it is for you to lead during these very, very difficult times. This is no picnic for you, but I feel each of you have been elected and decided to run for this office at this very time, because councils are going to come and go. But it'll be this council that is going to be asked to save the city of Scranton. It'll be this council that will be remembered in history as the council that saved the city of Scranton. Don't want to spend the 5 minutes or the 3 minutes talking about what went wrong in Scranton, what didn't go wrong in Scranton, but the commuter does read papers, and the press hasn't been over the years very favorable. Two things just jump out to me is, for 20 plus years, we have been called a distressed city. 20 plus years, after 3 years, you say to yourself, something isn't working here. Let's go back to the big drawing. We don't want to be distressed forever. I'm not going to take Hazleton as my template in Allentown. Then we look at the balloon of the pensions. After the first $100 million, I think I'd say, hey, wait a minute, people. Down the road, we're never going to be able to do it. So these things bring me to the commuter tax. The commuter tax to the commuter seems punitive to them. First off, they don't understand it. They think they're the last elephant in the parade to come up with a couple of bucks for Scranton. They don't see that they are directly the reason that you need a commuter tax. So they feel disenfranchised all around. And I don't know really, when we do the commuter tax, and I offer this respectfully to you, how successfully it will be. It's easy to always levy a tax. But collecting the tax, in my experience, is very, very difficult. I'm unaware of what your tax base is in the city of Scranton. I have a feeling probably your earned income tax is pretty weak, and I have a feeling that you're working on that as we speak. The repercussion from the commuter tax, I think a lot of Scranton may be the mercantile tax, the high wage tax, the property tax, the school tax. It's driven people out of Scranton. One more tax. Do I think it's what we need? I don't know. Is it what I want to inflict on my commuters? Not really. 5.5 million, it seems to me, a stretch. I have an alternative, and it sounds bizarre, but it's creative. Instead of having a tax that is submitted to these commuters, and again, it's punitive and it's bringing a lot of negative. Scranton needs more than ever before positive. What if we do a campaign, Save Scranton? Not just the commuters, everyone. My commuters in the city of Clark's Summit, we do have a disparity in our wages. Of course, we have some that are very wealthy. A tax is a tax, we'll pay it. But I'm here for my families, new families that are starting out, and they really are just making $30,000. $50, okay, let's all get along, we'll pay $50. $150, a little difficult for the family that's coming into Scranton to work either at the university, part-time, or at the hospitals, or at the libraries, or whatever. $30,000 is a lot. But if we have a campaign, like a capital gains campaign, it opens, it broadens it. Not only is it the commuter, let them give willfully what they have to give. Could I ask, just for a couple more minutes? Thank you. Let me just say, we would broaden this. We would broaden it to the senior people that live outside this Scranton area. We knew what Scranton was long ago. We are devastated where Scranton is today, my generation. We remember when West Side was Hyde Park. We remember when East Market Street was the place to start going to see Christmas lights. That's what we grew up with. We didn't see slum landlords. We didn't see real estate signs all over, people going to the urban sprawl. I welcome them. But we remember Scranton, and I think if we do capital gains fundraiser, Save Scranton, buy a sticker, give what you can, you will be surprised where a punitive action is going to be difficult. It is a suggestion. Whenever I have a complaint, I try to give a suggestion. I just want to say in closing, why am I here? I struggled with coming, but I know if I was sitting where you are and you're standing, you would be standing where I am, because you love your people, you represent them well, and you would be asking for the consideration for them. Many of them were afraid to come because they were afraid of repercussion at their jobs. And also, I couldn't live with myself if I didn't take your invitation from the paper seriously, that you wanted to hear from me, from my borough. So I thank you. The other thing is, I love Scranton. So I want you to save Scranton. You will be remembered in history. I know you'll do the right thing. I thank you for the extra time. God bless the sitting council, and God bless all taxpayers inside and outside the limits. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mayor Lawler.
Thank you.
Joan Hodowanitz.
Joan Hodowanitz, Scranton resident. I was expecting tonight to see torches and pitchforks, so you may be a little luckier than you imagine. But I, like many residents, was really surprised by the stories in the paper this morning. First of all, the mayor being mum on Tax Plan B, and I'm going to quote him. "I don't know that it will happen, and if it happens, if they do pass the law, I don't know exactly how it will affect us," the mayor said. "It hasn't happened yet, so we went forward. We'll have to see what happens if it passes. I'm hoping it doesn't, but I'll deal with it when it happens, if it happens." That does not fill me with a sense of confidence. I've got to tell you, I'm also concerned that I don't think that Mr. Amoroso had the benefit of this actuarial analysis on the pension funds when he did his study and made his recommendations. I think he even mentioned that he didn't have this information. The bottom line in my mind is, I think Mr. McGaughan, you hit the nail on the head last week when you said we need to see the mayor's entire plan, not the piecemeal, here's a commuter tax, here's this tax, here's that tax. We need to see him lay out the entire plan. He needs to be able to answer questions like, what if? What if the state passes this new law? How are you going to handle it? Are you going to do the, let's just wiggle our side down 0.75% and it'll be a wash? I don't know whether or not you can do that and get away with it. Let's assume you can. I still want to see the entire plan for the city. I want him to address the state of the pensions. Okay, is this going to be a 3-year commuter tax, a 20-year commuter tax, or the never-ending commuter tax? I know I'm probably singing to the choir in many respects, and you can't do this for me, but I hope that the mayor listens to these council meetings on cable TV, and if not, maybe reads the paper the next morning. And I really wish that he would take the time to have a meeting with the general public. And since he's proposing a commuter tax, he needs to include the people from the surrounding communities. He needs to present his plan, not Mr. Amoroso's plan, his plan. He needs to defend it, he needs to explain it, and he needs to answer the what-if questions. He owes that to the residents of the city and the surrounding communities. And I don't understand, why he's hesitant to do that. He has been in office now for over 6 months. He should have an idea of what he wants to do. He has the benefit of Mr. Amoroso's recommendations. If he cannot tell us the way forward now, maybe he should resign. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hodowitz. Sheila O'Brien.
Hi, I'm Sheila O'Brien. I live in Dunmore and I work in Scranton. And I oppose the commuter tax mainly because at my job I don't have a pension plan. One is not provided for me. So I don't think that I should be taxed to pay for someone else's pension plan. Payment to pension plans are the responsibility of the employer, not the commuters. So that's really all I have to say. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I oppose the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Mary Grace.
Good evening. I want to say that I appreciate the opportunity to come here to speak to you. I have lived in the Scranton area since 1985. I moved here from New York State, and for a long time I was proud of Scranton and was proud to say that I lived in this area. I have not lived in the city of Scranton except for when I first moved to Scranton to go to Marywood back in 1985. And 2 times since I've lived here, I have worked in Scranton and not lived in Scranton. I'm not currently working, but I do feel that it is unfair for people who work in Scranton but do not live in the city limits to have to pay a tax that provides them for nothing other than to say that they work in Scranton. And I think it's important that the city be saved from the distress that it's in, but the plans that have been offered to this point, from my view, don't seem to be working. So I really would encourage the people on City Council and Mayor to also come up with some kind of plan besides continual taxation to solve a long-standing problem. Thanks.
Would you just please state your name for the...
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say my name. My name is Mary Grace.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to address council?
Andy Sprague, citizen of Scranton, fellow Scrantonians. This problem with the pensions started with, well, I shouldn't say, it was a little before Mayor Doherty. But Mayor Doherty is the main reason why we're in trouble now. He had a buyout plan when he took office, and a lot of the employees took it. And then he rehired other employees to replace the employees who took the buyout. That all added cost to the pension plan. The way the pension plan is actually actuated and governed is crazy. We had members of city council given a pension, even though it was in violation. But who cares about violations? We don't care about anything but taking care of the people who take care of us, meaning the politicians. That is why we're in trouble with the pension. Some of the reasons. A lot of the reasons is you allow people to buy time. They don't work for the 50, like me, I had to work until I was 55 to get even a full pension, but I went up to 62. But they don't. The way the pension is formulated cannot stand. It really can't. We can't afford it. It's either massive layouts with the firemen and police after the 3-year contract expires, or reformulate the plan. And you have no intention of reformulating the plan, and I doubt you're going to get it done. As far as the commuter tax, if I was outside the area and had to pay the tax, I would ask for representation on that board. And if they were smart, they would file with the court system to have that representation to the board. If you're asking us to pay, then we want something to say on that board. And I believe they should do it. And another thing with this commuter tax, it's mainly a right-to-work tax. And I would file it with the federal, just like a poll tax. No one should have to pay to work. And that's what this is, a right-to-work tax. And it's happening. You're going to vote it, and I have no question about it. It's going to happen, whether the state changes the law, which is probably going to happen too. And I don't know if you can reduce what would happen if you try to reduce the wage tax, whether it all call back to court hearing after hearing after hearing. The main thing is we're living above our means. And that's the basic thing. We're spending more than we're taking in. And I don't know how you're going to change it. It's pretty tough. KLC does not work because it was never formulated to work. It was formulated to give a gift out, which they did. The only person that really did what they were supposed to do was down at the icebox. I don't like what happened with the 198-year lease for the old parking garage. I wasn't happy with that, but that's how this politics work in this city. We give away 198-year leases for $1 a year, but this is how we do it. Now there's how much we got from that, I guess it's a gas station there and convenience store. How much we getting back in taxes, I don't know. Somebody said we can get back the improvements, but I don't really know because we own the property. We don't own the buildings on the property, but we do own the property. And that's the way it goes. That's why the city's in trouble. That's why you're looking for other people to pay for your mistakes. You have to stand up and say, I made the mistakes. Some of you have been on council for 4 years, 4.5 years. Others have been on 7 or 8. And this is what you did, nothing. All you did was whatever the mayor wanted, you said yes. We don't need bubblehead councils. We need somebody who's going to fight for the people of Scranton. One man at the meeting, they were talking about decorum. Right. Decorum should be. Nobody should be up there and scream that. I believe in that. But I do believe you should fight for what you believe in. Mr. Lascombe at least fought for what he believed in. I thought he made a big mistake. I thought he should have resigned in January or before, and then let the council that was there appoint the guy to fill the seat. But he didn't. I don't know why he didn't. I think he made a big mistake when he did that. In other words, the last council would have appointed the member. But that's the way it goes. Unfortunately, he didn't do it. Thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to address council?
Good evening, Council. Marie Schumacher. First, tonight, I would like to thank OECD Solicitor Hickey for taking the time to go over the loan portfolio with me, and I congratulate them on finally taking some action on many of the loans that require the action. And then I would like to thank the Times for 2 things. Number 1, for revealing the planned secret meeting for Tuesday night. I absolutely could not believe that that happened. I just think that anybody with common sense...
Excuse me, it was not a secret meeting.
It was secret to most people. It was no legal notice that a meeting was occurring of... Anyway, I don't want to take my time. I have a lot. And also today's encouraging news that we may get a receiver if our MMO is not met, as I believe the time is now to cut our losses and admit defeat. Mr. Amoroso said we're going to be somewhere between 12 and 14 million, I believe it was, short this year. The 5 million that you're planning on voting on tonight, and I'll get back to that later, leaves $7 million or 7 to 9 million. Where are those $7 to $9 million coming from? I would like to see that whole thing before you vote on any one item in that portfolio. Next, I'd like to know who's responsible for administering city contracts. I believe it's that you're adding insult to injury when you overlook shoddy workmanship and then tax the people to have that same shoddy work repaired. East Mountain Road is a perfect example. It was very shortly after that road was opened that the joint between the 2 lanes started to deteriorate. Experts tell me it was because the temperatures probably were not high enough to properly knit those 2 lanes. Now, so we paid for that, and now we're going to pay again, hopefully, because hopefully it will get fixed. It gets worse every single day. We've had incorrect repairs made on it that are just going to wash out again, and it's just wrong that we have to pay twice. Now, back to 205, that's on the agenda again tonight. I'm guessing that nobody took the time to read the article that I provided to each of you that was written by the first receiver of the city of Harrisburg, because he provides very cogent reasons for not proceeding piecemeal, as you are planning to do tonight and finalize next week, I'm quite certain. I believe also that we need to revise the home rule charter. I would ask that you who have the ability to put that on the ballot would do that. And one of the items that should be in that is that if we lose a council person, that the city council's appointee is only good until the next election, be it primary or general, and let the voters decide who the 5th council person should be. Also, another subject is trash. I have personally witnessed a car drive up to an empty lot and unload bag after bag of garbage. I would say 12 to 15 bags of garbage. Now, what percent is paid so far this year? I would really like to know that. I think it's wrong. We are being abused by the current system. And I would venture to guess that probably less than 70% of the people will be paying for 100%, plus those people who want to come and dump trash from, I assume, outside of the area, or maybe commercial people that don't want to pay for it themselves. But it is not, it's not proper. The agenda tonight, D, agenda for the City Planning Commission. Lori Reed told us tonight that it was canceled. I believe this is the 2nd consecutive month that was canceled for lack of a quorum. I think some investigation needs to be made into why that's happening. If people are appointed that don't want to serve, then they should resign and let some other people come. Or perhaps it's just that they don't want to address the SAPA issue, so they're avoiding having meetings. I don't know what it is. And then I'll finish with, I do notice that kiss another one goodbye, the Adams Plaza with $56,000 assessment for their land and another $10,000 for the improvements is going to go over to the nonprofits, and we again will get to absorb those costs and all the mercantile costs that 5 floors would have provided. So, again, I hope you do not pass 205. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, resident of Scranton. All taxes paid, all fees paid. Why are we fighting tonight? We have an opinion of mercenaries. These think tanks are mercenaries. You go to whatever think tank you want to arrive at the conclusion you need to arrive at. And that's a fact. There's very few, only a handful of think tanks that aren't mercenary. They come up with their opinion, and their opinion is bought. Back during the Republican debate, I witnessed Romney went ballistic with Newt Gingrich over the Heritage Foundation, which Newt Gingrich was big on. And Newt said, I don't know who came up with this idea about required health insurance. And Romney woke up and he snapped back, and I was on the floor. You did. It was so hilarious. It was truer than life. You couldn't make it up. Now, on this commuter tax business, our last several elections have been waged on money from outside sources, outside the city of Scranton. Why do people outside the city of Scranton care about who's mayor in Scranton? Especially when the guy that gets elected gives stuff away for $1 a year. It's befuddling. Well, there's an incentive there. So I would appreciate if the people that are here tonight are still here, go back to your local businesses and concerns and tell them, stop donating money to Scranton election campaigns. It's not proper. On Act 205, I feel it's necessary for this reason, that we have 33% of non-tax exempt properties not paying and they benefit their federal courts, their county courts, their state courts, there's hospitals, there's schools, there's this, there's that, and the next thing. And they benefit society at large. So what's the solution? Get together, take the state to Supreme Court, the state constitution, and get it overturned, that they cannot require year in and year out an $8 million, $10 million hole in our budget from property taxes that benefit everybody, and we turn around and get stuck holding the bag. I can't have it myself. Now, last week I got jumped about reverse mortgages out in the hall, and I'm not saying that elderly people should get a reverse mortgage and pour it all into taxes. You don't have to pay your taxes at all. But if there's somebody out there that's scrimping by and not putting food on the table, and they do have the ability to get a reverse mortgage and pay up their taxes, eventually somebody's going to come at you after all these taxes and fees, and then it's too late. Your interest or your credit rating's ruined, and there's a lot of trouble. Don't let your house go for a few $1,000s worth of back taxes when you can in fact draw the money out and maybe even go on that vacation you always wanted to go on, who knows. Pay the grandson that cuts your grass a couple of bucks for a change. We have on this property now tax exempt intermodal transportation system, 2 businesses affected, and one has been moved to Dunmore or is in the process of moving to Dunmore. The other ones will be across the street. It's a bus company. They'll be across the street for a free government-funded lunch. And by the way, we don't have intermodal transportation. I mean, we've been hearing that for 35 years, another pipe dream. And a house on next to the county jail is going to be taken for a parking lot. And now we have Adams Plaza in the paper this morning. So there's a whole city block gone off the tax rolls. We really need to go to federal court, but that 0.75% might be necessary. As wrong as it is, it's at least getting attention. And by the way, don't plan on the PUC bailing you out if you sell the sewer plant. We have 350 various concerns selling somebody else's electric delivery and generation. And it's filled up with legalese print, fine print, and your electric bill, if you go with these people, can inflate 600%. How about that? Isn't that wonderful? Gee, thanks, Mr. Ridge. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Ruan. I lived in Scranton. I was born and raised in Scranton. I lived here for 35 years. I live in Archibald now. I love Scranton, but I don't think that I should pay for someone else's retirement. I'm asking you to put yourself into the shoes of the commuter who commute to this city every day. That reduction in pay is going to reduce what I could put into my retirement. You have to think of the people that you're affecting. I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say, but I thank you for taking the time to listen to me. Thank you.
Mr. Rowan. Anyone else who wishes to speak?
Hello, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk like a citizen. Now, as I live in Nicholson, I don't live in Scranton, but I have a job here in Scranton. And I'm against the commuter tax because I don't even have a pension, pension plan. And I mean, I know we use the streets and come and drive here, but I shop over here too. I pay taxes and everything I buy, whatever they charge in, you know. And so I'm against the commuter tax. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Did you get a name? Sir, excuse me, sir. Would you just state your name for the stenographer, please? I'm sorry.
I don't know how much tax I would have to pay, but make like about $600 a month on the job that I have. I don't know how much. I don't make 50,000.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Council. I'm sort of frustrated and disappointed in my council, but and our mayor's support of Mr. Hermoso's repugnant plan. I don't know what plan B and C is going to be, but I talked to a real estate man last week, and he figured that probably half the houses in this city are 75 years old or older. He said you can't even, they're getting hard to sell at any price. You know, my house taxes have doubled in 20 years. Now you want to go up 90% in 4 years, and that's not going to be enough, and you guys know it. You're going to have to go more than that. How are you going to expect people to live in this city triple what they were, taxes like that? My insurance is $1,600 a year in my house. Last week I spent $250 on a plumber. You forget all these things. I got a bar bill. You know, there's other things in life besides taxes for you guys. And here, Mr. Hermoso, if you sold the sewer authority, like I said, you can imagine those rates would skyrocket. It'd be a private company, and they're in there for business to make money. There's no way to sell it and have people being able to afford it. There's people now that you expect to suffer, and they're worried about things. Right now, they don't care about things 10 and 20 years from now. Look at the city right now that we live in. You know, I've sat here for 2 or 3 years and told you how my neighborhood is declining and declining and declining. It's full of undesirables everywhere. I don't know if they're illegal. There's people just renting rooms all over North Main Avenue. There's cars parked on the sidewalk because they don't have nowhere to go. The place is really getting trashy. And you guys treat this Mr. Hermoso like a god. It just doesn't, he has some insane rubbish is what he's trying to shove down your throats with this plan. If Frank Joyce had advocated this last year, you would have run him out of town on a rail. You're just, the people are defenseless to do anything about it. You don't try to do anything else except raise taxes because that's the easiest thing to do. Mr. Hermoso, he didn't lift a finger to keep Hesser here. He could have been saved if you ask me. I've known that man for 20, 25 years. There's no reason they had to move out of here. They could have done something to keep him here. Look at this ice ring charade been going on for years, beating us out of taxes. The goodwill, year after year, they tell us a bunch of blatant lies instead of giving that property up so some reputable person can have it. You know, it just goes on and on and on. I ask why you can't rewrite the Pure Charity Act. Maybe that would have stopped something like went on. You know, in less than a month, Lackawanna College has taken $3.7 million worth of property. Mr. Mr. Volk told us he's going to grow 40%, and he is at the taxpayer's expense, and nothing's being done about any of this except you take the easiest way out, raise taxes. Yeah. You're very disappointing, you know. There's got to be something. There's got to be some kind of solution to these problems besides raise taxes. How are we going to make up 3 points? I ask you how you going to make up 1 point, that 1,200,000. Nobody said nothing. Now it's 3.7. How are we going to make it up? Your 90% taxes wouldn't make a dent in what's going to happen in, 3 more years? You're going to sit there and tell the people in 3 years we need another 50, 60% increase over 90? That's over what the county's done? You're going to have a ghost town. These people cannot afford rents. They can't afford to live here no more with the way things are going. And I'm not scolding you. I told you weeks ago, I support you guys. The people out here, we need you to help us, not turn your backs on us. Thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to address council?
Fifth order, 5A, motions.
Councilman Wexler.
Thank you, Mr. McGough. I'd like to say that we have been diligently researching Act 205. There is a lot of things that we don't know. We are in the beginning of the process, and we are doing a lot of research and implementation on it. And the one thing that I mentioned last week, and I do believe that is true, is the fact that we started to look at Act 205 has brought focus on Act 47 in the State House. Since these two things are kind of running simultaneously for approval, we have to consider Act 205 because it is on the table for us right now. Act 47 is still in committee. We don't know when it's going to get out of committee. For this tax to be, if this tax, Act 205 passes, there are some administrative issues that have to be done prior to it being enacted and collected. These things have to happen by December the 1st. It would be unexcusable for us not to pursue this tax. The state has given this to us as an option. We have to pursue this option for the city of Scranton and the residents of Scranton. It would be irresponsible for us not to pursue this. If Act 207 passes, and it can work in conjunction with Act 205 or replace Act 205, we do have to talk about it when that happens, but it has not happened yet. So like I said, I am voting to move it ahead tonight again. We'll do more research on it next week, and we will go from there. But like I said, it is irresponsible for us not to act on this. We can't wait for the mayor. I have a responsibility as a council person. I cannot have the mayor come here to council. I can't have him have a public meeting. I can't have him present his plan to the people. I can only do what I'm responsible for. And I'm working on what I'm responsible for. And that is all I have tonight, Mr. McGough.
Thank you. Councilman Rogan?
Yes, one brief issue before a few comments regarding the 205 tax. We mentioned very briefly in the caucus about the issues that were going on in the Kaiser Valley area because of the construction. I was notified today by a resident that because of the truck traffic taking detours through the neighborhoods instead of being on Kaiser Ave where they traditionally would be, that a mirror was knocked out completely off a car because of a big rig going down a residential neighborhood. With my colleague's permission, could we please send a letter to Chief Graziano asking that this issue in that area is extra patrols are put in that area to watch for truck traffic, and I'll give you some streets, after the meeting. Regarding the 205 tax, and it's an issue I think we've all struggled with and looked at quite a bit over the last few weeks. What it came down to for me regarding making a final decision is the 205 tax would bring in approximately $5 million in revenue into the city. If the 205 tax is not implemented, the city will still need to find that money to fund the pension. If it is not implemented, it means that there will be more property tax increases on the residents of Scranton. We all know that the taxes are too high in the city as they are. We need to look at other options. As Councilman Wexler mentioned and as Councilman McGough mentioned in the newspaper, the state of Pennsylvania has given Scranton and other cities, I believe there are 40 other cities that use a 205 tax, this tool. We need to pursue it. It's the right thing to do for the residents of Scranton. I understand that commuters are upset. I would be too if I lived outside of the city and worked in the city. But try to put yourself in our shoes as well, where the residents have endured tax increase after tax increase. And at the end of the day, I know much of the argument is, well, the 205 goes directly to the pension, which it does. But if that money wasn't going into the pension, it would be more dollars from the general fund that would be going to fund the pension, which would make it even more difficult for us to do things like the services that commuters use and that Scranton residents use. That's why I agree with Councilman Wexler and Councilman McGough that it would be foolish for us not to move forward with a 205 tax unless there was another viable alternative on the table that would bring in $5 million without raising taxes on Scranton residents. Over the last 2 weeks, I'm sure we have all heard from residents and non-residents regarding this tax. And by and large, the residents of Scranton strongly support this tax because they understand it's less tax that they will have to pay at the end of the year. And as it was mentioned by Councilman McGough in the newspaper, we were elected by the residents of Scranton to do a job. We're responsible to the residents of Scranton. That's why I will be voting to support this week and again next week the 205 tax. I know there are many issues that will be brought up regarding implementation. I know when we talked to our solicitor and we met as a council to talk about the 205 implementation a little bit, we are going to request Business Administrator Bolzoni and Attorney Jason Trive come to our caucus next week to address some of the implementation issues. And assuming all of those issues are addressed at next week's caucus or prior, I will be voting yes to lessen the burden on Scranton's residents by implementing the 205. Thank you.
Councilman Goss?
Yes, thank you very much. A few comments. First, I received a call from neighbors on Oak Avenue in Manuka who complained of dangerous potholes on their street that they would like filled when possible. City Council has forwarded that request to DPW. A concerned resident had contacted me regarding businesses on Main Avenue in West Scranton who are putting objects on the sidewalk making foot traffic difficult. The resident also had a concern about a couch and piles of garbage on a porch on Swetland Street. Council has forwarded these concerns to Chief Graziano of the Police Department. Last week, we passed legislation allowing permit parking in the 900 block of Prescott Avenue. There were some questions as to what the next step was in this process. Residents from the block need to come to DPW headquarters at 101 West Poplar Street. They must bring proof that they reside in the permit parking area, along with their owner's card for their vehicle and their driver's license. They are allowed 2 residential and 1 visitor permit per household. The cost for the residential is $5 per permit and $2 for the visitor. And finally, the street sweeper is scheduled to be in West Scranton next week, July 28th to August 1st, from Washburn Street to Elm Street, including all streets and avenues. And at this time, I'd like to make a motion that we table item 6A.
Is there a second? There is no second to the motion.
Okay, thank you. I again asked my colleagues to table this legislation concerning the commuter tax. After the information I provided last week, it would be foolish to push this legislation through City Council. We've heard from Senator Blake, who explained in the paper, as I did last week, that it's likely legislation will be passed from the General Assembly that would require Scranton to levy the proposed commuter tax against its own residents. I will not vote to raise the wage tax 33% on the residents of this city. At this point, an increase in our wage tax would be crippling to our residents. As I stated last week, it's premature to entertain this commuter tax to fund the pensions until we know how negotiations are progressing between the mayor and the bargaining units, or if they have begun. The mayor should sit down with the police and fire unions and negotiate immediately. We need to know what savings can be found before we shove a tax through City Council that will burden commuters and residents in order to fund the pension. I feel very strongly that we should not consider a tax increase in the absence of a full budget proposal. There are many moving pieces to every budget, and those components should not be presented piecemeal to City Council. I still don't understand the rush. There are many unanswered questions, and I would hope my colleagues would make the right decision next week and vote no on this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I neglected before, I had something that I was supposed to announce, and I don't have the information with me, but the Southside Farmers Market is open on Saturdays at the Scranton Iron Furnaces. People are encouraged to go there. There are a number of vendors with various products. I'm not sure what the hours of operation are, but I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in the morning hours to early afternoon that it's open. Two items that, first of all, I will address Act 205 and some of the comments that were made. As far as the idea of representation, I know people have used the term taxation without representation for Act 205. It should be noted, Act 205 is not something that was enacted by the City of Scranton. It was voted on and signed by your representatives at the state level. Your state representatives, your state senator, your governor implemented this act. They felt that it offered a remedy to distressed cities, to distressed municipalities in dealing with their pension issues. As Mr. Rogan stated, we are simply using a tool that was given to us. It is being used in, I believe, somewhere around 40 municipalities throughout the Commonwealth. This is not something unique to the city, but simply a tool that we feel, or people felt, was a possible remedy. And yes, I did state that I represented the city, the residents of the city of Scranton. That was not to denigrate anyone, any of the commuters. I understand the arguments that commuters may have, but I do not represent someone from Dixon City or Archbold or Wilkes-Barre. I represent the citizens of the city of Scranton, and it is my responsibility as an elected official in the city of Scranton to represent what I feel are their best interests. And that was all I meant by that statement. It was not meant to denigrate in any way anyone from outside of the city of Scranton. As far as the other legislation at the state level, we can't wait for the state to act. We need to act on our own. We can't rely on the state to do what we think we can't allow ourselves to think that the state legislature will act in the best interest of the city of Scranton. Simply put, there is precedent that they will not. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to act on our own behalf and not wait for proposed help from the state. As far as the payment of the Act 205, or an increase in the Act 205, or the EIT tax, it should be noted, and that was for the question that I asked of one of the speakers. anyone who already pays an EIT tax in their own municipality that is equal to or greater than what the tax will be in Scranton does not pay the commuter tax, does not pay this increase. Okay? So there are a number of communities, outlying communities, that are exempt. A number of commuters will be exempt from this, from payment of this tax. So it is not every commuter that is going to be affected. And as far as it being piecemeal, that's the second thing I would like to address. We were presented a few weeks ago with the plan, with recommendations from Mr. Amoroso. The mayor sat at that table and said that this was his plan, that this was going to be his plan for recovery for the city of Scranton. He later went on or addressed the public via a news report or press conference that this was his plan and wanted it to be referred to as his plan. What we were presented is a rather comprehensive idea or ideas for fiscal responsibility in the city. We cannot vote on this in its entirety. If we were to do that, that would be, in my eyes, totally irresponsible. That would give the administration carte blanche to implement any of these recommendations in any way they wanted. Each of the proposals in the, whether you want to call it the Amoroso plan or the administration plan, each of these must be dealt with individually. That is our responsibility. Each aspect must be considered individually as it's presented to council. What we have been given is the first step in this plan. It is the only thing that we are considering at this point. We can't look at every aspect of the plan at this time. We are simply dealing with the first step in implementing a, if you want to call it, a recovery plan for the city of Scranton. And that's all. Thank you.
5B, for introduction, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into an easement agreement between the city of Scranton and Lackawanna Heritage Valley Authority for a section of the Lackawanna River Heritage Trail for various properties along Naog Avenue.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it and so moved.
5C, for introduction, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into an easement agreement between the city of Scranton and Lackawanna Heritage Valley Authority for a section of the Lackawanna River Heritage Trail situate in South Scranton.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it and so moved.
5D, for introduction, a resolution reappointing Stephen Coaches, 531 Hickory Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18505, as a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals for the City of Scranton. Mr. Coaches' term expired on July 16, 2014, and his new term will expire on July 15, 2019.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced in, 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it and so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, file of the council number 36, 2014, an ordinance An ordinance to provide revenue funding for the severely distressed pensions of the City of Scranton by adopting and imposing an additional 0.75% tax upon earned income received and net profits earned by non-residents for work done, services performed, business conducted, and income earned within the City of Scranton, requiring the filing of returns by taxpayers subject to the tax, requiring employers to collect the tax at source, providing for the administration, collecting, and enforcement of the said tax, said revenue to be specifically restricted to funding of the severely distressed pensions of the City of Scranton under and pursuant to the Municipal Pension Plan Funding Standard and Recovery Act, Act 205 of December 18, 1984, Public Law 1005, Number 205, and its amendments, specifically 53 PA-CSA, Section 895.101 et seq. This tax is expected to generate approximately $5 million in annual revenue.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question.
Yes, on the question, just to address a couple of the items that were brought up by Councilman Gahan. At this time, if this law is enacted, there is no additional tax to be levied on the citizens of Scranton.
How do you know that?
As the state law currently stands, there is no additional tax.
Right, but what if the state law, Act 47, is passed?
We can't sit here and say, what if
I
the state
talked
does
to
this,
Senator
what if the state does
Eichelberger, I
that?
talked to Senator Blake, they said this thing is going to pass. So then what do we do? Do we have to repeal it? This is what I'm saying to you. There are many unanswered questions. What is the rush? What's the difference between introducing this now and introducing this around budget time?
But your question today is, what is the rush? But 2 months ago, you were yelling, where is the plan, and chastising the mayor and the Chamber of Commerce.
This isn't a
So
plan,
which
this
is
is a
it?
component of the plan. This is a sliver of the plan.
It's a very large part of the plan. It's a $5 million part, and if it doesn't pass, it means more tax increases on the residents of Scranton. A vote against this tax is a vote for a $5 million tax increase on the residents of
I
Scranton.
strongly disagree. Strongly.
Yeah. Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Ayes have it and so moved.
6B, reading by title, file of the council number 37, 2014, an ordinance of the City of Scranton adopting the 2009 edition of the International Property Maintenance Code, regulating and governing the conditions and maintenance of all property, buildings, and structures by providing the standards for supplied utilities and facilities and other physical things and conditions essential to ensure that structures are safe, sanitary, and fit for occupation and use, and the condemnation of buildings and structures unfit for human occupancy and use, and the demolition of such existing structures in the City of Scranton, providing for the issuance of permits and collection of fees therefore, repealing ordinance number 2, 2000 of the City of Scranton, and all other ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict therewith.
You've heard reading by title of item 6B. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6B pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Excuse me. Opposed? Ayes have it and so moved.
6C, reading by title, file of the council number 38, 2014, an ordinance creating and establishing special city account number as noted entitled Teamsters Local number 229, Republic Parking Employees Healthcare Contributions for the receipt and disbursement of those funds received under the current collective bargaining agreement.
You've heard reading by title of item 6C. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6C pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it and so moved.
Seventh order, no business at this time.
If there is no further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
This meeting is adjourned.